Welcome to my German recipes. On my menu today I have a German vegetable soup, and to add just even more taste I will also add some meatballs to it. Those who follow my channel for a longer time notice that I have taken quite a long break this time. I usually take a break at the beginning of the year, but this time it was way longer than usually. So I was painting the house. It was way more work than I expected. It took really very long. And then my daughter, who is a musician and a student at school, she just released her new single, Ice Age, and I was doing the PR for it, which also took a lot of my time. So since I'm a good mom, of course, I have no shame but to advertise my daughter's single here. So I encourage you to listen to Ice Age from Lilith Max. But now let's get to the recipe. So for a vegetable soup, usually in Germany, you can buy something that is called Suppengemüse. And that's basically a bundle of vegetable that contains of a carrot, a quarter of a celery root, some parsley, and oftentimes some parsley root. I don't get the parsley root here, and I value my parsley too much to uproot it. So I have to skip that. But other than that, that is the basic vegetable that we use in Germany, and you can buy it in every grocery. You can also buy it already diced and a frozen variation that you just have to throw that into the soup. And that's what I'm doing here in Texas quite often. When I prepare a soup, I make more of the vegetable and I dice it, freeze it, and the next time I make a soup, I just, use that for the next soup. I will do that here today too, but I also want to show you just the recipe that I make for the soup. And there are, of course, a lot of variations for vegetable soup, and you can add quite a few things. I will get to that in a little bit, but let's first take a look at what I got for my soup today. So I have carrots and I have leek. I have a celery root and parsley, which are the components for a regular vegetable soup in Germany. And then I will add some bell pepper. That's just a choice that I made actually mostly because of the color, so that the picture that I will make later looks very nice and not too pale. And you can, of course, use any other vegetable that you would like to have in a soup, like some potatoes, or some people use some corn. So there are, of course, no limits to what you like and what you want to have in your soup, and that's fine with me. Then I also have some ground beef here, which I will use for some meatballs that I will add to the soup later, and this will give it a really, really good taste. Additionally, I have some light broth here, and by light I mean that if you buy a ready broth, just water it down somewhat. You don't want to overtake the broth taste, the soup taste, but you can also use just some water. That will work too. I like to have a little bit of a broth in the liquid though, just to increase the taste even a little bit. And like always, the quantities for the recipe are on the blog in this post, and you can print that, and you can also switch between the metric and the US customary system. I have way more ingredients here than I would usually use for just one soup. As I mentioned before, I will dice some more and freeze some of this. Okay, so while I'm cooking, I will also tell you a little bit about how Germans enjoy their soup. But let's first start and prepare the vegetables. So I'm going to start with the celery root, and there's something I want you to know. It is a really important ingredient, and if you can get it, you should definitely use it. But on the other hand, if you are using too much of it, the taste of it will overtake in the soup, and that might not be in your favor. So usually for a soup for 4 person, I would use a quarter of a celery root. So it would be like this much, and that should be enough. And you have to peel this. I sometimes use a potato peeler or sometimes just a knife. Depends on my mood. And it's sometimes not so easy to find celery root. This one I got at Sprouts. And they always look sort of ugly. So everything needs to be diced now, and I will definitely choose the lazy way to do it. I can do it with my knife and it won't take very long. However, I really like this tool here. I've shown it before. I will put a link below the video so you know where to find it. And I just dice it like that, and that's so much faster. And also it makes the cubes the same size, which is very nice for cooking. So next are the carrots. And I only wash them. I could peel them, but there's no point in that. They will be in a soup and they will look the way they will look, and they weren't that dirty. Let me show you the tool that I use to wash my vegetables. It's this silicone kind of thing, and that's really awesome to rub all the dirt off, but leave the skin on so that you still have the vitamins that are usually right under the skin of vegetables. Okay, so I will cut those in a size that will go into my little slicer. So here we go again. Okay, next up, the bell pepper. And as I said, you can use something different. So it probably also depends on the time of the year. So if the season is summer, you might want to add some squash, some zucchini, something like that. So there's, as I said, no limit to what you want to add. Just should have like about the same cooking time as the other ingredients, or you have to add it a little later to the soup than the other ingredients. Okay. So the leek is actually also part of the bundle of soup vegetables most of the time, but sometimes it's substituted by a large onion. If you don't get a leek, or if it's too expensive, which can happen these days, then you can resort to some onions. By the way, I think leek soup was the first soup I learned at school to make. I'm wondering if people would be interested in a recipe for leek soup. If so, just leave a comment and let me know if that is something you would like me to cover as a recipe. All right. And look, all these colors here. It's so pretty, isn't it? And last not least, the parsley. This is Italian parsley, and you can also use the other parsley. How do you call it even? The regular parsley? I don't know. And I have that in my vegetable garden, but usually for that we use the Italian version. So let me remove that. And just chop it like roughly. It doesn't have to be super small or something. You know what? Let me just leave a few leaves out for decoration later. This will also give a lot of taste to this recipe. So now, since everything is cut and cubed as I want it in my soup, I can now divide it into portions. As I said, I'm making more and freeze part of it. So I want to leave like a quarter of this root celery for my soup today. That should be about it. And don't be too picky about the amount. It's like not making much of a difference if you have a carrot more or less. I usually do not really use a recipe for my soup. I just, you know, wing it and use as much as I like that day, and usually I'm really fine with that. So let me add most of it here. I'll probably have to divide it into a second bag, but well, maybe not. I think it looks good. This goes now into the freezer. So I brought the broth to a boil, and it depends on you how much broth you use. I use a little more than 4 cups or a liter, and that's about the amount that works well for our family. If you need more liquid, add more water. If you don't want that much liquid, use a little less. So this is, vegetable soup really is something that's very flexible and easy to adjust to your taste. And if you don't know yet what your taste is, you will figure it out as every time you make it, and every time you cook it and make it a little different and try things out, and you will get to the point where you have your favorite vegetable soup. Okay, so I let this boil now, and I'm also adding already the parsley. As I said, it's in there to give taste, not for decoration. Looking good. Alright, so I will put this a little bit aside, because while this is getting back to a boil, I will prepare the meatballs. So here again, it also depends on your taste. If you have your favorite meatball recipe, or if you prefer to buy the meatballs prepared at the grocery and just want to boil them, use that. That's fine with me. I just show you how I do this, how I make my recipes. That's why it's called MyGerman.Recipes. And you can follow me, you don't have to, with all these steps. Sometimes it's just supposed to give you an idea of what to do and how to do it. So I'm adding a little bit of an egg, and then I have basically my go-to recipe how I make this. So I'll put some salt in there. There's always some Italian herbs in this, just a bit. Definitely some onion powder, or you can use some fresh onions. I'm adding some garlic. Some white pepper. And some paprika. I'm generous on the paprika part. So I will now mix this, and I will also add a few breadcrumbs then. Let's first mix this all together. Sometimes I'm leaving out the egg and the breadcrumbs. That works too, but it makes it a little more, or let's say it makes it a little less dense, and some people prefer that. So if you don't want to make the soup with meatballs, it is very common in Germany to instead just cut Wiener Würstchen or several Wiener Würstchen into slices and add that to the soup. It also gives the soup a very nice and intense taste. I like that very much too. The problem is I don't get the Wiener Würstchen here in America, and the sausage that they sell here as franks, to be honest, I don't like them, so I don't use that if any possible. Then for those who try to avoid eating meat, so if you're a vegan or vegetarian, instead of this meatballs, you can also add some Mehlklöße. These are little dumplings made with flour. I will try to find a recipe and we'll add that to the recipe on the blog. Okay, this looks actually good. I don't even need breadcrumbs. I'll still add a few just to work on the consistency a little bit. Then there's the fact that soups don't make you full for very long, and for that reason in Germany in general a soup is always served with bread. And that's something I noticed here in America is probably uncommon, at least here in Texas. If I order a soup, same I experienced, by the way, in California, they just give you the soup. That's all you get. So I always have to ask a waiter if he can bring me a little bread to go with the soup, because that's how I'm used to it, and it makes you full for a little longer. If you don't eat bread with that, we sometimes also cook some rice and add that to the soup when we serve it. Don't cook the rice in the soup, because that just gets some kind of mushy and it's not that nice. So that's cooked extra. Then sometimes people just add a good amount of diced potatoes into the soup just to make you full for longer. So these are all ways you can adjust to your soup. I will write a little bit about that on the blog post. Okay, so now this is boiling. I reduce the heat a little bit and I will start to shape the meatballs. So you can make meatballs in different sizes. You can make them this size, but for the soup I actually really like to make them in a small size like this, so they can go on the spoon when you eat your soup. Okay, I reduce the heat here a little bit, and then I'm adding the meatballs to the soup. So now let's take a look. This has been like 12 minutes, I would say. And let's see if the meatballs are cooked through. Let me just taste one. Very delicious, but I can already tell that there needs to be more salt added to the soup. And that is okay. I could have added some more salt earlier before I put in all the vegetables, but it doesn't really make a difference. So let's see. Can still need a little more. And I feel like I want to add a little more of the pepper. But other than that, the soup itself has a lot of really good taste. And that's why I'm not really adding any additional spices or herbs. I like it the way it is right now. And let's stir it one more time. And if you feel like you want to have a little more spice in it, you can add some spicy sauces, some spicy Tabasco maybe, or something like that. Or maybe just add some paprika. Oh, perfect. Just to the point. This is delicious, and I can't wait to serve it to my family. They will be so happy. So this is how I make my vegetable soup. I hope I was able to inspire you for your own version. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe and hit the bell button, and I hope I see you in my next video.